that we didn't play on the record.
I went out and took Brian's place with the Beach Boys. And I can understand probably why Brian had studio guys come in, because there's a lot of them would fight like cats and dogs, man. Rather than Brian to go through the hassle to get the tracks, he would hire the rhythm section to come in and do the tracks.
Well, the guys, they at first got a little jealous, you know what I mean? But I explained to them, I said, you know, I want to get the best I can get for the group. And they go, well, I can understand your point, Brian, you know? So we went ahead and did it, and sure enough, the guys liked it.
I mean, that's one of the most asked questions. Well, didn't Dennis get mad? Wasn't he mad because you were doing the Beach Boys records? Dennis did not have the studio chops that we had. Yeah. You know, the proof of the pudding is that Dennis called me to do his album when Dennis did his solo album. I played the drums on it.
A lot of times the guys would be sitting around the studio. We didn't know that there were guys in the band. The guitar players that were in these various groups, when they realized guys like Tommy Tedesco was going to be playing, they wanted to sit around and watch. And their drummers would want to sit around and watch myself or Al. They were there like more or less they were learning. You know, it would be something that I'd like to see too if it had been the other way around.
Terry Melcher wanted to use session musicians for Mr. Tambourine Man. I'd been a studio musician in New York prior to being in the Byrds, so they let me play on it. So my feeling was, great, I get to play with this great band, the Wrecking Crew. Of course, the other guys, David Crosby and Michael Clark and Chris Hillman, were livid. They hated the idea because they didn't get to play on their own record. We got a #1 hit with it right off the bat, but we knocked out 2 tracks in 1 3-hour session. To compare that with what happened when the rest of the band got to play, it took us 77 takes to get the band track for Turn, 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 which was also #1.
People assume that just because my dad made his living playing guitar, I can also play. For me, and some of the other kids as studio musicians, we didn't take it up as a profession. What my father did teach us was common sense.
I got called many years ago. I show up on this date, now there's 70 musicians sitting there. I'm looking, I said, 70 musicians, wow. Where I sit? And they said, over there, there's a guitar. You know, I sit there. Now I look at a part. The only problem is started at bar 95, you know, and all the rest. Now the guy starts, right? And you know what this is to me at the time? This isn't a nightclub. You know, you see a chick. Hey, there she is. Hey. But when he did this and there was no music, I said, oh, they're at bar 95. I knew it. Guitar, where's the guitar? Over here. We're at 95. I didn't hear you. Oh, okay. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, forget it. Let's go from 96. And they had somebody come in the next day to do it. Elvis Presley came back there a few years, and I started getting hot in records, and Elvis started using me when he comes to the coast for movies. So nobody told Elvis who to use. To that day, I never knew if they knew I was the same guy, though. Yeah. But I wasn't about to tell them, you remember me 3 years ago? I'm the guy. See, the one thing, I have common sense. I studied common sense more than I did guitar.
In the 60s, the Wrecking Crew played on thousands of recordings, but you would never have known it.
Producers made a big mistake when they didn't put the credits on the back of the albums of all the people that had played on the albums. Not only did they deserve it, but I think it was misleading.
Maybe one of the reasons they left the names off was the same musicians played on so many people's records, it would have been an embarrassment if anybody had ever listed them.
I was used to it. Because when a guy hired me with his last $25 and he had a bomb, I never gave him his money back. Right. You know, and so I really treated it as a business. And I understand how you feel, too. But I just felt, just give me my money, and I got lost.
Everybody loves a clown, so why can't you? A clown has feelings, too.
Snuffy always let
Myself and the Playboys laid down all the basic tracks. And then Snuff said, now we're going to sweeten it and do some overdubs and stuff, and I'm going to bring in the people that I want to use. And I had no experience in this, and Snuffy had. So I said, well, great. If you think that's the way to do it, let's do it.
The drummer came in, but Snuffy let him, you know, play some kind of percussion like a tambourine. So it could say Gary Lewis and the Playboys. But it was really studio guys that made the track.
And I remember my guitar player and our keyboard player, after hearing the session musicians coming in and putting down the parts, you know, they were saying, oh my God, I never could have done anything like that.
I'll never forget working with Gary Lewis and his Playboys doing all the records.
Sure.
And I'll never forget I had one real hot lick on this one record, Spanish stuff all over the place.
Guess you could say my love was blind.
And finally, his guitar player come up to me. He says, oh, you drove me crazy with that thing. First of all, I can't play it, so I don't play it. And then everybody comes up to me complimenting me on what I did on it. I said, well, just take the compliments and forget it.
So all my guitar players played a much simplified version of it, because nobody could play that.
That was inside stuff. I think that the public at large was oblivious to the fact that there was this secret star maker machinery, that a very important component of that were these teams like hitmen, studio hitmen.
Nobody cared. All they wanted was the product. They just wanted the name and the sales. Who created it? That was incidental.